teachers, it's so hard for us sometimes to think about how to structure our time for students to have the kinds of experiences that will grow them into strong, proficient, and joyful readers. The reading workshop is one way to ensure that we have a kind of structure or framework to follow as a teacher to maximize our time and the time we have with kids. It's in that workshop time, sometimes I think of it as a container of time. It's in that container of time I put those things that are most important. What I've found is that sometimes we overcomplicate things as teachers, and it's easy for us to get lost in all the small pieces. So if we think about the reading workshop as a kind of framework with 3 parts, it makes it somewhat easier to make a plan. In fact, I sometimes draw a circle and put those 3 sections in, and I do my planning right in that circle of time. So in that first part of the reading workshop, I gather kids up close and I model and demonstrate within a text what the reading process looks like. I share my thinking that leads to understanding. I name that thinking, often telling kids what I'm doing in my head, describing it, and also at the very same time naming that thinking so that they can recognize it when it occurs in their own reading experiences. So let's say we're reading a piece of realistic fiction. And on day 1, I often think of that first experience with the text, that close, careful reading, as an anchor text or an anchor lesson. And it's there that I look at the whole text through a careful and close reading so that kids see all those nuances that text offers us as readers to help us make meaning. And so that first reading, if it's realistic fiction, for example, I look carefully at when the trouble or conflict begins. And I make sure that kids notice that as they are hearing me read and hearing me think aloud what is happening in my head. The next thing we look for is the climax, because stories are made of conflicts that lead to climaxes and turning points. And finally, we might pay close attention to the way in which the resolution occurs and the story ends. And so it is that I'm calling kids' attention to not only the features of the genre, but I'm also making sure that they're aware of the kinds of inferences I'm making, the kinds of connections I'm making, the ways in which I'm synthesizing and summarizing the parts of the story so that they make a whole. Now that might take me 20 to 25 minutes on day 1, but on day 2, I can maximize my time by simply looking at a part in a mini lesson. So on day 2, I might look very closely and carefully at the character development and the ways in which the author has helped me gain insight about the character and make inferences about the character's qualities and the reasons the character performs and behaves in a certain way or says a certain thing. And so once that anchor lesson is often followed by a mini lesson, then we go to the second part of reading workshop.